Okay, welcome to Jags Chat Lounge, and today we'll be talking about divorce, separated and single parents. And we have our special guest in today. Her name's Mani Hayre, but she's also a blogger as well. So if ever you want to check out blogs, check out Manimadness. But first of all, thank you so much, Mani, for coming on the show.
No worries, thanks for having me.
It was very interesting because, like, when I put out the advert of divorced, separated and single parents, that's how you got in contact with me.
I did.
To share your story with me on the phone, and it was like, wow, you know, you obviously like went through quite a bit. If you could just share your story to the people who are watching.
Okay, yeah. I think I felt quite strongly, and I never felt that strongly about much on social media, and I just thought I'd reach out and if my story was of interest, to see, you know, how I could contribute, especially to break some of the stigma around divorce, especially a divorced woman.
I know, yeah.
That is so much different than being a divorced man.
And what makes you say that? How different do you think it is?
I'm not saying for everybody. I know that's a general stereotype, but what I found from my experience is that if I was a guy at the age I'm at now, I would already be married, remarried, with a child, because I feel like there's less stigma attached if you're a divorced guy than if you're a divorced woman. And it's, from my own experience, what I found is that the blame is always almost entirely put on the woman, regardless of whether anyone knows what the situation was, what led to that divorce, whether it was amicable, whether you're still friends with your ex. You know, the divorce is always blamed on the woman, and then the guy can just move on, remarry, have kids, have another family, and that's just based on the observations that I've from my own experience, from people that I know who've been divorced.
Do you think it's different when, say for example, a guy is divorced and he doesn't have any kids, or a guy's divorced and he has kids, compared to a female being divorced, having kids, or a female being divorced and not having kids? Because, I mean, I know there's quite a few guys who I know who are divorced and they've also got kids as well, but so being a single father, but some of them have found it pretty difficult, because it's about, I think, as like when you're young and everything, you want to get married, and especially if it's like a love marriage and everything, that's absolutely fine. But then obviously if things hadn't worked out and they just separate or they divorce, and not all mothers do tend to have the kids to themselves, and some of the fathers have them, and they've actually said that at times they do find it quite difficult to find someone else, because a lot of them tend to say, well, you were married before. If you were married before and you divorced and you never had kids, that would be different. Yeah. Whereas, like, you've got kids, you're still going to have that connection
to
with, like, your ex, which obviously, because, you know, she's being like, she's the mother of the kids as well. So I think yours is very different, because completely. you've got no kids, but you are divorced.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got married when I was 23. I think like every other girl can sort of understand this. You get raised a certain way when you were born in the 80s, and growing up in the 90s, your life is kind of mapped out for you, isn't it? And you get married at 23. He was from India, I was from here, got married, and it just didn't work out for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into now. But so we divorced. Obviously, I'm a divorcee. I have my decree nisi. If I was to ever get married again, I have to produce that on documents. I have to say I'm divorced, regardless of whether I felt anything for that marriage or not. And what I found is that, yes, if I had children, it would probably be a lot harder. I mean, I'm already struggling now to find someone. I've been in relationships since, and I've dated. But what I've discovered from the dating community and the guys around my age is that they are always going to blame you. Oh, are you the crazy ex-wife? They always tag the word crazy to that sentence, if that makes sense. And it must have been something that you've done. There was even a dating site that I joined, and they were hosting an event to get all the people that were members to come along. And I thought, that's a great way. That way you're interacting with the people that are online and they have profiles. And I ended up talking to someone and not going, and some of the feedback that they sent me to the people that didn't attend was like, oh, they'd asked if the divorcees could have their own event because people who had never been married didn't want to mix.
Oh, really?
It's like we've got some sort of disease that might be contagious, you know.
But do you think that's an understanding from their side that, you know, there are reasons to why people either separate or divorce? And I mean, as you said, that there's a stigma that you blame the female. I mean, why do you think that is? I mean, what is it about a female when she's divorced compared to a male being divorced, and why is it always the female that gets the blame?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this on the way over, and randomly there was a song on the radio, and he's calling out his crazy ex-girlfriend. I'm like, I was like, it's so ingrained in music and film and TV that the girl is always crazy. I think there's even a film called My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I don't know if it's so deep-rooted that a woman just takes the blame for everything. And I'm not saying men don't see the brunt of it, and I'm not man bashing at all. I'm just talking from my own experiences.
Of course,
I had a guy who I was talking to on WhatsApp and Facebook from a dating site, and he just kept going on and on and on about how it must have been my fault, and what did you do wrong, and what did you like
straight away?
Yeah, and like, did you not mix with your in-laws, and did you not do this, and did you not do that? I'm like, why is all that expectation on a woman? What if he didn't mix with his in-laws? You know, and what were the expectations on him? Obviously my situation is completely different in terms of why I left him. But I have found the same conversation being had with other women who are divorced, and that's a variety of ages. They could be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And the blame always seems to lie with them.
I mean, if you can just go onto like your story and just share, obviously you're not from Birmingham,
No.
but you know, we won't like say where exactly like where you're from, but you've just moved to Birmingham. You actually had it quite hard for yourself, didn't you? It was quite difficult. Would you just like to touch on exactly what happened?
Yeah, I would
especially like the marriage.
Yeah.
Was it an arranged? Was it love? How it all like started?
No, it was an arranged marriage, which growing up north was just, I feel like I was so secluded from my own community and the world. I grew up in a bit of a bubble. That was just the way of things. We didn't have phones, we didn't have the internet, you know. What was a dating app? What was Tinder back then, you know? I was lucky if a boy even spoke to me in person, let alone whatever online.
Were you not allowed to talk to any guys then?
I was allowed to interact with them, but I wasn't allowed to have boyfriends, I wasn't supposed to really have male friends, that kind of thing, and that isolates you. So how do you
get to know
the opposite sex? That isn't your brother or your dad or your cousin, you know. And I did write about this, and I write the fact that my parents were a little strict in our upbringing, and it's just like, you're not allowed to talk to boys at school, you're not allowed to have boyfriends, you're not allowed to have boys around, you can't go to parties where there are boys, but then suddenly at 21 you have to get married and engaged and married to a complete stranger, and then all of a sudden be a grown-up and do all these relationship things that you have no knowledge or experience about. So that was my life, and it was an arranged marriage. I met him when I was 21 when we went to India. Obviously there was a Vijay involved, which was a family member. Got us introduced, and at the time I was the kind of person that would always please everybody. So regardless of how I really felt, if it made everyone else happy, like my parents, like my extended family, of course I'm going to go along with it because they're so happy. And eventually, you know, I'll be happy. It was just one of those things.
So what if you were to have turned this down and like told your parents about it?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And what was their response?
And I think they just ignored me. I was being ignored, and I think I was quite a tantrumy child. I'm not gonna lie. I was quite vocal. I was quite tantrumy, and I don't think that helped the situation, if I'm honest. Because when I was married, he manipulated that to his own advantage.
Okay.
You know, because I was like a child.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about the world. And I was very tantrumy. I'd cry and I didn't understand why. And I'd be like, I don't want to get married. And like, I couldn't really articulate the reasons why. And I thought, you know what, maybe it'll be fine. And he came over, and it was a week before the wedding. Didn't even speak to me. I'd come all the way from my hometown to Birmingham to pick him up from the airport, and you know, whatever. He didn't even make eye contact, didn't speak to me, and that was my first niggle that something wasn't right.
Didn't you think that he's probably like shy or?
No, because we'd spoken before, and I'd met him a few times when I'd been in India, and he was definitely not shy, and there was something a bit off. And do you know what, weirdly, it was on our wedding night, when we were chit-chatting and alone together, that he let slip that he was applying to go to Canada, and then I happened to come along at the right moment. And then that was when a lightning moment happened. I'm like, oh, right, okay. But again, I was still quite young and naive, and I thought, that seems a bit strange. Something didn't quite sit right. It was niggling at me. And it wasn't until I got a bit older I was just like, yeah, I was definitely a pass to get here, wasn't I?
Yeah.
As is the case with so many. But what I found from the divorce tag is nobody cares about your story.
As in
nobody cares like what the situation was that led up to your divorce. All they see is you were married, didn't work out, clearly you did something wrong. And
so how did your parents react to that? You know, obviously you told them that you wanted to divorce him, you didn't want to be with him any longer.
Do you know, they were really supportive. I had to go through a lot of crap to get there. But we were only together a few months, and then I moved back home with my parents, and they eventually started to see what I saw.
Alright.
And it opened up their eyes, and they were nothing but supportive. They literally, the parents that they became were the parents I wish I had when I was growing up.
Alright.
If that makes sense. Like we couldn't have got closer as a family. They could do a complete U-turn. My mum is so cool now. It's like, where was this mother when I was growing up? And I joke about this with her all the time, because she's like, oh, what do you mean? She's like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I was always like this. I'm like, mother, no, you weren't.
So are your parents like born and brought up here? Or
my dad is. My dad was. My mum's from India.
Right.
Weirdly, my dad's getting more backwards, and my mum's getting more.
Really?
I know. I think he's just so set in his ways, and he's like 60 soon, and he's just like, yeah, all right, but not really. And certain things bother him, but he's always overrun by the women in the family, so I don't think he gets much of a say.
So have you got any siblings as well?
Yeah, I've got a brother and sister, both younger than me. And after my situation, my parents like, right, we're never getting involved again. We're never setting them up with anyone.
So would they actually, like, if they were to have like a love marriage, they...
Oh yeah, fine. My sister found her husband online.
Okay.
Fell in love, got married, have a beautiful baby girl. My brother, he went to Manchester Uni, never really came back. You know, he came back for a few months while he was unemployed, and then he found a job, and he basically moved for work. So he's not been home for like nearly 8-9 years, like living with mum and dad. He found his missus at work. She's white. My parents are fine with it. My mum loved the wedding ceremony. Didn't last several hours. It was over in 20 minutes. Done the vows. Bam, have food.
That's actually quite interesting, because like next topics that we will be talking about is mixed marriages. So if your brother wants to come along, talk about violence.
So much so that my mum and dad have never had a problem with me being divorced or having that, and they will literally fight every person on earth.
Do you feel that obviously like makes a difference? Because sometimes, and I can only say like from a female point really, it's, as you said, there's always a stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And being a female, yes, I'm not saying all as yourself, but majority of them do have to take blame for it and everything. Yeah. But sometimes if they don't receive support from their own parents, it's like, then what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, you probably feel lost. You feel just, you know, where do I go? Who else can I speak to? Because like your parents have brought you up, and you just feel that they're like friends to you, or you want them to be friends. As your best friends and everything, that you can obviously share your problems, you can speak to them and everything. And as you said that you had like a few relationships. Now, when you met these guys, were they from like the dating sites, or did you get introduced? Both.
So one of them was with the dating site, where they then gave that feedback about divorce. He's having an event, and he was divorced. And I was divorced. So we were both on the dating site, and do you know what? We connected about the guilt that we felt about it not working out. Because while my case was different, I did still feel guilt, because my parents had spent a lot of money on the wedding. I still had a ceremony. I still had a party. You know, all the shebang that goes with a wedding. And obviously I felt incredibly guilty, you know, like, oh, maybe I should have stopped it sooner, they wouldn't have wasted so much money. My parents have never blamed me for anything, or said, oh, you know, here's the invoice, pay us back kind of thing. The second guy who I broke up with last year, he was introduced to me actually through a family friend. My mum and his mum are friends, I think, or they know each other through association, and I was introduced to him. He didn't care, he had no problem with it, and a lot of guys don't, but there has been too many occasions where I'm just put off dating sites, and I don't even put anything as my status. I don't put, you know, divorced or anything like that, because I'm like, to be fair, does it even affect you right now? Because if you saw it, you start judging me from day one.
Yeah.
You know, and I have already so many other barriers, like my height. I need to get over.
I thought like you're really tall.
I know. I nearly put my heels on, so that was a good choice.
So, I mean, I know you just mentioned that you just split up. Was it last year?
Yes, last February.
Was he also divorced, or was he?
No, he'd never been married. Never really
married.
settled down. Yeah.
And how did you feel? He was all right about it. Yeah,
it's fine.
It was absolutely fine. So, what exactly went wrong there?
Oh, so many things. It just, he met my family, and I don't think they particularly warmed to him and thought I could do better, and then it kind of just went downhill from there.
Was that because of what your parents had said that you felt, you know, obviously, or was that, it was your choice?
It was my choice. It was completely my choice. And even though my mum introduced us, there was no real pressure from her. Oh, when you get married, you've had another date, when you're getting married, that kind of thing. So my mum's pretty cool. And actually, when I made the decision to move to Birmingham, she was a little, I think, oh, what are we going to do? You're the last child at home, and you're moving so far away. But then my brother and sister were like, you need to leave. You know, they'll be fine. The shock will wear off. And then I think within the last 6 months, she was my biggest cheerleader to buy my own house. It's like, right, find your own place, stop renting, stop living with people, and she's like, are you happy now in your own place? I'm like, yeah. And she's my biggest cheerleader in that element. I think after I broke up with the ex last February, the two things that came out of her mouth when I told her was just like, one, we're taking you on holiday, let's get this booked. Two, buy your own place, buy your house like you wanted, forget about relationships for a while. Even to the point where some of the relationship advice that she gives me is like, find yourself a nice gorda. Like, you've done Indian enough, try something different.
Do you know what, actually, funny enough, quite a lot of, I mean, a few friends of mine who were married before, they were married to Asians, and I do have to say that they have actually married non-Asian guys. They have actually married white guys. Yeah. And that is very interesting. So that's why, you know, that idea of like mixed marriages, because that's a lot in now, isn't it? And it'd be really interesting to know, you know, from like being divorced and everything, how it was like for them to like get back into a relationship. And I know with a lot of them, they were like, don't want to get married to an Asian guy. Why not? And they've got their valid reasons. And then you think, okay, fine, I understand why. But I will leave that for the next one. So it's all right.
That is a big topic.
So, as you know, you're single now.
Yes.
Have you been put off like getting married or like dating or anything?
I haven't been put off getting married or dating.
Okay.
My mum still gets the odd call for rishtas and stuff. And one of my dad's brother-in-laws is obsessed with trying to set me up with someone from India. And even my boa's like, leave her alone, stop mentioning it, do not talk about India ever again.
I was just going to say that, you know, when they say that, like, you know, we're going to find a guy from India, does it ever really put you off, or do you think, do you know what?
Completely puts me off.
Yeah.
And I know they're not all like that, I know this. Times have moved on, like, I got married in 2006, so we're a long way from that particular decade. But even the rishta that came through, Mum was like, no, sorry, been there, done that. She got the t-shirt. We're not going through all that heartache again, because they saw how much it upset me and kind of broke me, really. Not necessarily the divorce tag, but the whole experience I had getting married and being so young. And so Mum was like, you know what, date, don't date, get married, don't get married, that is entirely up to you. And I was like, well, Mum, how would you feel if I had children? And she goes, as long as they're adopted, that's fine. You can be a single mum. So I think she's just opening herself up to the fact my life might not be conventional, and it might not happen for me, if that makes sense.
Do you think that, obviously, like, do you think your mum's changed because of what has happened to yourself?
Yeah.
Or do you think she's always been like that because she always kept it within herself?
Might be an element of both, to be fair. My mum's always been really vocal, really, really vocal. I remember being 7 and her fighting with her neighbours and shit, with her very limited English, you know, yelling at them because they were complaining that the kids were making too much noise. And she's like, they're children, they're all under 7. Like, of course they're going to make noise. Yeah. So my mum's always been vocal. Whether she also didn't want to break the rishta that we had with with the people that were my vijay, I think that had a lot to do with it. And then it broke anyway, and I think at that point she's like, why am I why am I not just defending my daughter? Why does it matter what everyone else thinks or what society thinks? Like, she's mine, if that makes sense.
And I think that's another thing as well. It's like, I can't talk for any other communities, but I can say, like, within some, not all, of the Asian, we have to say some, we can't always say all. We'll be very careful. But with some of the Asian communities, it's like, they think about the communities more, like what other people say, and I think that's what really affects the families. So it's like, sometimes, like, even though the parents may know what the kids are doing, where they're going, who they're friends with and everything, but it's like, when, like, someone else who's, like, walking down the street, they probably might see you with, say for example, they'll see you with a guy with, they'll run to your place, guess what, they'll speak to someone else and say, guess what, we saw like so-and-so's daughter with such and such, like, guy and everything, then it's like Chinese whispers, isn't it? And I think sometimes, I don't know if you agree or not, but sometimes families, even though they're tight-knit, you know, they're really close and everything, that is other people who actually are quite negative and cause the problems within their particular family.
Absolutely. I grew up in a very white town, so I didn't have the gossiping aunties that a lot of people, I think, in the Midlands did. But I do understand that upbringing, if that makes sense, where everybody's involved in your business. So my parents knew everything that I did. Like, I would go on holiday as long as we got there safe, or I would go travelling by myself, and the only thing my mum cared about, obviously when I moved back in and started living my life properly, was like, are you eating roti tonight or not? Because I need to go on the adda and I need to know if I'm making enough for you. Literally the only thing she cared about. Like, she needed to know what days I was coming home for tea. So that was my thing. Yeah. But they did put that fear into me that everybody's watching what I'm doing in the community. Yeah. So even though we didn't have that gossiping auntie community, they put that fear into my head when I was growing up. So it was more imaginary for me. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is it doesn't matter how close-knit you are, your parents trust you and they know your lifestyle, they know what you're doing, they know that if there's a photo taking you of in a club with your friends, that's all it is a photo of you in a club with your friends. But yes, a lot of the community are like, oh, do you know what she's doing? She's going out. Or they have this perception that you're going out every weekend and that you're getting pissed or you're sleeping around, and that's not the case. No. Like, I could be on water all night and they would still have that perception. And I don't talk to boys. One, I'm deaf. Like, if a boy's trying to hit on me in a club, I'm constantly like, what are you trying to say to me? Don't talk to me, I just want to dance with my friends. So they have this whole perception just based on the photo. And I think that does feed back into family dynamics, and it does cause rifts, and it causes arguments.
Photos can be quite deceiving as well, isn't it? Because I remember when I actually put up a picture on social media and I was just drinking water the whole night, but I sweat a lot and I was really hot. And I remember when one of my friends actually put on there, look as though like you're drunk, and I'm like, actually I was really hot that night. So you know what, I thought, right, okay, I need to take this picture off, because no matter what, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but if, like, for example, if you're introduced to a guy and like they suddenly check on social media now, don't they? So
they check your profile.
They check your profile and everything, and they look at literally all your pictures, and it's like, then that's, you know, instead of like doing a background check, it's a social media background check on you, isn't it, really? And it's sometimes, you probably feel, well, and I used to feel that, you know, I need to be careful of what I actually put on social media, because like being in the media and everything else, like when people know about you and like the pictures that you put on. And then it was also, even like when it comes to work and everything, like they will actually check.
They check your profiles,
yeah, exactly.
They do.
So, and I think sometimes for females, it is quite difficult for them. It's like it's as if you don't have a personal life, and I suppose that's what social media is. You know, you put everything on, and still it's not your personal. You want to keep it personal, but it's not.
It's not, exactly. And guys don't post as much on social media as girls, so stalking a guy is not the same. So they're going to find out way more information about us than we will. They'll have an odd photo that they updated a few years ago.
Do you think the reason why that is because females are probably more open, and it's like, I'm not saying that they don't really care, but this is who you are. Yeah. You know, that's who you are. And I've noticed that with some guys as well. They don't really put much, as I agree with you there, because sometimes, and then you think, are they hiding anything? Is there a reason hiding?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you start, but then it's like, is that important? It's like, you know, when you meet up, when you talk and everything, that's totally
different. And then that eats away at you when you're in relationships as
well.
And that is a whole different topic as well, and in itself, social media relationships.
Oh gosh, yes.
But what I have found through social media is that there's nowhere online to say I'm divorced. You know, I don't have a tattoo. Like, it's not like you're branded when you get your degree in eyesight. Like, okay, this'll let people know. But I have written about it. So if anybody wants to know the story, and I can't be bothered to explain it to them, like, right, here's a link to my blog. One, get an extra view, so it's good for my stats. And then if they have any problem with what I've written and the fact that I've written it so publicly, then I just know that you're not really for me. If you have a problem with my story, regardless of the fact that it's public or not, that's still my story. Of course. And it's in my control to write it and publish it, so that's why I did it. And when my ex from last year read it, he messaged me going, I've got a few questions. I'm like, here we go, because the guy I'd been speaking to a couple of months before, I was at my PT, I was just getting ready to do some boxing, and I got this message, and she looked at my face, she was like, what is wrong with you? You look really angry. And I showed her this message I'd had for a guy going, it was really wrong what you'd written, you shouldn't have made it so public, like what had happened during your marriage, the fact that you divorced and that kind of thing. And it's because he was actually going through a divorce while he was talking to me. Right. I'm like, you haven't even finalised the last relationship and you're already looking for initiative for another one. And it was the first time that I'd ever seen my PT get really, really angry. And she's like, I forbid you to see him. I was like, okay, love. I was like, you can't forbid me to do anything. But and that's the kind of thing that I get from men who read my story, or the fact that they know I'm divorced, is this constant, what did you do wrong? You shouldn't have written about it. Why are you so open about it? I'm like, it's not like I can hide it. And when if they do come through, my mum filters them, if that makes sense. And the first thing she says to them is like, my daughter's been married before. She got used to get a visa. And you need to know this up front, because you might as well have that information now. Rather than it from anyone else. Yeah, and then God knows how many people she's like fended off with her, with her answers back to them. But
I suppose it feels really good now that having like your mum supporting you and everything.
Yeah, so much. She has become one of my best friends. Learned to teaching how to FaceTime as well. That's been fun.
I think it's always really nice. It's always nice when you teach your parents certain things. Yeah. But I mean, going back, like obviously, like your divorce and everything, and it was great that you had the support from your family. But there are some who are out there who are very unfortunate. Yeah. So, from a female who's been through divorce, I mean, obviously the process of it, how was it? Like a click of a finger, yeah, it's fine, straight away got done, or was it quite difficult? Obviously, like he wanted to like get married because he wanted to like get that stamp on his passport and everything like that. Was it quite difficult, the whole process of going through the actual divorce?
The actual divorce process for me, no, because I kept that hidden, that he used me for a visa. Just to protect my parents more than anything. And because I didn't have kids, and because he didn't really want any of my assets and that kind of thing, it was quite a simple process, and we just put it down to, I can't remember what the exact terminology was, but there was one where you just sort of amicably breaking up because no one's cheated on anyone, or or nothing, no one's been abused, that kind of thing. And so there were all these different categories, and while I know I was incredibly lucky in that sense, and my parents are really, really supportive, and I don't know what I would have done, because at one point I thought I would lose my whole family. So I can empathise with that fear of going through it alone and being in the world alone. But luckily my family have been nothing but supportive, and I do completely sympathise with women and even guys who their whole family turns their back on them, and I'm like, that's your child, you raised them, you should you should be more supportive, you should try to understand mentally what they're going through.
Because sometimes, I mean, they're kids, and like, you've brought them up and everything, and yes, they get married, then you think, they've got their own family, or like they've got their own partner now, just leave them to it. But what happens, as we say, behind closed doors, not everyone knows. So instead of pointing a finger and judging the individual, that like asking them, what did you do, was it your fault, and everything like that, it's about listening and understanding that it doesn't, sometimes it could be a mutual decision, can't it, really? And I think that's the one thing that everyone needs to like kind of understand, that instead of pointing a finger at anyone or even judging them, ask them. And if they are confident enough to talk about it, then great. If not, then obviously there's probably a reason to why they do not want to talk about it. But what message would you like to give out to anyone, even like to the men as well, because we can't just, you know, treat the men, because the men do actually go through this as well, and you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, I know that we've actually got someone who will be coming on, who's a male, and he will be talking about his divorce and everything. But we do want more men on this show as well, you know, talk about your story, talk about your experience, because we can hear it from one-sided, like from a female side, but guys, I'm sure you're going through the same thing as well. I'm sure you've either had it tough or you've had it easy. We want to hear from you as well. But Mani, like from yourself, you know, what message would you like to give out to anyone out there who's probably, if, like for example, are they going through an arranged marriage? Yeah. I know quite a lot of them are going through like the marriages, or like they find their own partners. But to anyone who is probably going through something that you probably went through as well, what would you, not advise, but what would you actually say to them?
I think the thing I wish someone had said to me was, one, think about it, actually think about it, but also speak to your family, speak to your parents, they're not your enemy. And I grew up not really sharing much with my parents about how I was feeling, and then that ended up being, I guess, my downfall in a way, because I got stuck in a situation that I didn't want to be in. And now I tell my mum everything, whether she wants to hear it or not. So I would say keep an open dialogue with your parents. Don't get angry, just try to make them understand. And even if they don't understand, they're then at least aware of how you're feeling. Especially if you're not feeling the arranged marriage, or you're scared, or even if you want a divorce, it's about that dialogue. And if they don't accept it, that's the best you can do. And I guess build your own family, because I've got amazing friends and a support network of mine, and that could just be cousins as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be siblings, it could be cousins that understand. But the biggest advice I would give to anyone is talk.
Communicate, really.
Communicate, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that is very important. I think that's the one thing that quite a lot of us seem to have lack of communication with families. Maybe because you don't understand, or like you don't feel that you can talk to them. But sometimes it is a big surprise. I mean, I remember when I was like really young, and parents are parents in the end, right? And you think, you know, they don't understand, they won't know what I'm going through or anything. It was only one time when I remember when my mom, something happened, and like then we just became really, she's now my best friend. My mom and my dad are my best friends. And I think it's about giving them that opportunity and giving them that chance as well, just like yourself, really. I mean, at the time that you were going for this arranged marriage, did you fear that, you know, if you were to say no, even though like you said that they ignored you, or they did probably like put it aside and everything, do you think that you probably did push them enough to say, look, I really do not want to go through? Do you think they would have listened to you then? Or
I think it was fear that stopped me from continuing the no rhetoric, and not for fear of my life or anything like that.
No, of course,
but it was for fear of rejection, fear of upsetting them. And that's, I guess, just how I felt and how I was raised, and I didn't want to, it was almost a fear of letting them down, like I was going to be disappointing them. But now if you think, now looking back at it, and as I've got older, I see my mum as a woman. I see her as a woman who had an arranged marriage. She was 19. She came over from India, the woman who's sometimes too scared to do anything. I'm like, mother, you got on a plane at 19 and came across the world.
Courage, isn't it?
It's like, if you can do that at 19, you can do anything now in your 50s. And I think as I've started talking more to my mum, she started talking more to me about her story, because I'm like, sometimes we forget our parents have stories.
Of course,
They're human beings. They're going through, and as soon as you see your parents as people, as a man and a woman, and you know, then that, I think, changes your outlook on life and how you perceive them to be.
Well, thank you so much, Mani.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely great. And as I said, Mani Core, she's also a blogger as well. Manimadness, check her out. So thank you so much.
And thank you.
Any messages for watching?
I just want to say thanks once again for having me on, and if this helps anyone in any way, then that's all I can ask for. And again, if anyone wants to reach out to me, Manimadness, and thank you again for Jag, and I'm loving everything that you're doing on Jags Chat
Lounge.
There we go, Jags Chat Lounge. I'm loving the topics that you're covering and what you have coming up, so I'm really excited to see where you take this.
Thank you so much. And there again, as Mani has just mentioned, Jags Chat Lounge on YouTube. please do subscribe. And we are going to be talking about so many other taboo subjects. As I always say, real life, real stories, real talk.